3, 2, 1. Hey, Motorman here. Today we're going to talk about the people who do not belong on a motorcycle. Yes, there are such people, and we're going to go over. You might even be one of those people, but we'll find out. But before we go any further, if you don't know me, you just wandered onto this channel by an accident. I'm known as the Motorman. That's a police officer that's assigned to motorcycle division. I've been teaching the motor officer techniques to you, the average rider, for over 20 years. I'm the maker of the Ride Like a Pro video, and I want to let you know we still have the special going. Shortcuts to Riding Like a Pro and Surviving the Mean Streets video, both of them for 20 bucks plus shipping. This is not on the website. In order to get this deal, you're going to have to call 866-868-7433 between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also have the USB Ride Like a Pro, the full version, 2 hours long, and Surviving the Mean Streets. Plug this right into your phone when you go to practice. This is only $34.95. This is on the website. This deal is not, you got to call to get it. And both of them will come with the Ride Like a Pro practice guide. Shows you how to set up all the exercises and goes over every single thing I talk about in the video right there while you're practicing. Read a couple of paragraphs and then you go out and do it. I want to mention too that if you subscribe, it helps us out, and I hope you give me a thumbs up. And I'm going to warn you too, while I talk, I'm going to be getting on the bike. We're going to go for a ride. I'm going to be talking. You might hear some humor. If you find humor offensive, well, you might want to shut this off right now, because I know some people, they hear something funny and it bothers them for some reason. Whatever. You might hear some humor. You're definitely going to hear about some motorcycle skills. So you ready? Let's go for a ride. All right, so who are these people that should never be on two wheels? Well, it's a funny thing. Let me put it this way. Let's say, by the way, if you thought there were no winding roads here in Florida, check this out. Okay, it's about a half a mile long, but still, it winds. All right, let's say that you go through the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course to get your license, and you fail it. Now those courses are really, really simple. They put you on the little toy bikes. They give you half a day of classroom stuff, and then they show you everything about how to, the basics of riding a motorcycle, especially how to start off without stalling the motorcycle. So let's say you're a little nervous. Okay, you fail. You didn't get your license. That's bad. Those people should go back and take it again. Now let's say you fail it the second time. The next thing you need to do is get a private lesson. Now you can do that by speaking with some of the people at the beginner's course and ask them if they offer private lessons, because you need to spend a few hours with somebody who can tell you exactly what mistakes you're making and how to correct those mistakes. And a lot of times they'll let you use the little toy bikes again. But let's say that you've done that 2 or 3 hours with an instructor, and you take it a third time and you fail. Now, if you decide from there that that's it, you're never going to ride a motorcycle, it's just not for you, that's fine. If you decide from there, if you really have the will, you really want to learn, take another private lesson. I've had people come to me who already have their license, and I'm amazed that they actually got their license, but generally when they come to me, they're on an 800-900 pound motorcycle. And I always hear the same thing. Yeah, my last bike I was on a Sportster or an 800 Suzuki or something like that, and it was fine. Then I get on this 900 pound motorcycle, and all of a sudden I can't ride. Well, the fact is, you couldn't ride before. You had no skills. You just happened to pass the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course, because it's really dumbed down on the little toy motorcycle, and then you got on a smaller bike that you were able to muscle around a bit. I'm sure that you had to duck walk it around when you wanted to make a U-turn or the speeds drop below 20 miles per hour. You were very tentative. But It's not the motorcycle you're on, it's your lack of skills. You had very little to no skills on the 500-pound motorcycle. Now you get on the 900-pound motorcycle and everything is amplified. So all your shortcomings that you had before are amplified much more. And there's a big mental factor. If you were really good on the mid-size motorcycle, it shouldn't take but an hour of practice to get pretty good on the 900-pound bike, and a couple more hours and to get really good. But if you had no skills to begin with, and then you get on the 900-pound motorcycle and you're having all kinds of problems, and you do not want to take any further training, you probably shouldn't be on two wheels. Now, I had a woman that called me a couple of years ago. She's got a street glide. She's got all the problems that 95% of the people have. It's low speeds. Anytime the speeds drop below 20 miles an hour, she's dropping her bike all the time. So she was willing to take a private lesson with me, and I had her meet me at a parking lot at I think it was a Chili's. Anyway, she pulls into the parking lot, and as she comes to a stop, she drops her motorcycle. Now that's a bad sign. And she says the same thing. I have no problem driving down the road. It's whenever I have to do any kind of turns or low speed maneuvers, or even when I come to a stop, I drop the motorcycle. Well, I could see that. But what she's really saying is, cruising down the road in a straight line, making great big turns every once in a while, is not a problem. Well, that's not a problem for anybody. If you have a problem just cruising straight on down the road and making great big wide turns, you better get off that bike immediately. The bike practically rides itself once you get above 20 miles an hour. Below 20, yeah, you got to actually ride that motorcycle. You have to steer it, you have to lean it, swerve it, know which brake to use and when to use it. Well, anyway, I spent about an hour, I guess, with this woman, and her main problem was she couldn't manipulate the clutch. After about just 10 minutes of practicing, she'd had to stop and take a break. She said her hand was hurting her so much that she could barely make a fist. I mean, it was impossible for her. So this went on. Every 5 minutes she'd stop and she'd have to wait. And finally she says, "That's it, I can't take anymore." So I told her one of the things that she could do is they make a clutch. It's sort of an automatic clutch. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but there's a couple of companies that make them. You don't have to actually use the clutch. You could leave the clutch out all the way and take off just by rolling on the throttle. If you want to maneuver the bike at low speeds, you could just use the rear brake against a little bit of throttle. Or the good part here is you could use the clutch as you would normally on any other kind of motorcycle. She said, "Oh no, I wouldn't get one of those. I want to know how to use this clutch that I've got right now." She was being very stubborn. I says, "Well, if you can't do it, if in 5 minutes your hand is so cramped up you can't even pull the clutch in, there's no way you're going to learn. Either you're going to have to go and start get one of those little exercise things for your hands and start working your hand, 20-30 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a day, every day for about 2 months to build up the strength in your hand. If you're not willing to do that, you're just not going to learn. So you got two choices: either a workout program for your left hand, or you're going to have to get a different type of clutch. I think they call them, I'm not sure if it's automatic clutch, but whatever the name of it is, it works just like a regular clutch when you want it to. Other times you could just leave the clutch out, and the only time you need to actually use the clutch is when you're shifting up or down. But there's no friction zone or anything to worry about, but you can use it for that purpose. I highly recommend that type of clutch, and they're not cheap. They're probably $700-800 bucks, but well worth it. I highly recommend that for people who just can't get the hang of coordinating the clutch and throttle and aren't willing to do some kind of workout program to build up their strength. So after that lesson, she was supposed to call me another week, and she never did. So I've also seen people come to my class that inside of an hour they're having a really hard time, and they say, "Look, I'm going to come back another time." I said, here's the time. This is where you make the mistakes. This is where you're here to practice. If you were perfect, you wouldn't need me. All you got to do is try to follow my directions. I'll tell you what you're doing wrong, and I'll tell you how to correct it. The rest is up to you. If you quit now, There is no coming back. You will never come back here. And every single time, the person who quits never comes back. So that type of person then becomes somebody who is just a crash looking for a place to happen, because all they can do is go straight. When they have to make a quick maneuver, they will not have the ability or the skill to do so. And when you're riding out in traffic, folks, out in the real world, you've got to learn to lean, turn, swerve, know which brake to use and when to use it. If you don't know those things, you just depend on dumb luck, you are in deep, deep trouble out on the street. And I know there's a lot of guys that they'll force their wives to go and get their motorcycle license, and I've seen that happen with some women. They really don't want to do it, but the husbands talked them into it. They may take the MSF course and they'll fail it, or even if they get their license, they'll say, you know, I'm not comfortable riding a motorcycle. I really don't like this. I don't want to do it, but my husband is telling me I need to do it. Well, guys, don't do that. Keep her on the back of the bike. If that's where she's enjoying herself and that's where she's more comfortable, that's what you should do. Never force somebody to learn to ride a motorcycle. This is something that you really have to want to do, at least if you want to be fairly good at it. And you better be fairly good at riding if you're going to go out in traffic. In a perfect world where there was no other vehicles on the road, you can get by for a long time not knowing anything and just being able to go straight. There are some people too that are just not coordinated enough to be doing the things you need to do when riding a motorcycle, using the clutch, the throttle, knowing what brake to use, when to use it. They have a very high fear factor. And if you don't have a strong will that this is what you're going to do no matter what, nothing is going to stop you. If you're just like, nah, no big deal, I just ride for fun. I've heard that one too. That means I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'll keep doing it until I crash. I had another rider come to my class once who was on a street glide, and there's a big guy, about probably 6'4". It was a private lesson he asked for. He was unable to turn his motorcycle to make a U-turn in 300 feet. All he could do was go straight. I was amazed that he actually got to the class alive, because in the parking lot, I got a real big parking lot. It's about 350 feet. He needed every inch of that 350 feet to turn that bike around. His fear factor was so high, but what he did have was a will. There was nothing that was going to stop this guy. So I realized that it was really his bike that he was afraid of. He didn't want to drop his bike, so I had a Sportster that I used for a training bike. I had it with me, and I got him on that Sportster, and he still had that high fear factor. As soon as that bike started to lean, he wanted to straighten it right up. But he did do much better. I got him down in about 3 hours to 40-foot turn, so 300 feet to 40 foot is pretty good. He was thrilled with himself. And, you know, he had that will that there was nothing going to stop him. He's going to learn how to do this no matter what. He came back a week later, put him on the Sportster again, and he was able to do 24-foot turns. In fact, he was able on the Sportster to get through every one of the exercises in the regular class. It wasn't a private lesson. He was thrilled with himself, really thrilled. And he says to me, see, I knew I could do it. And I said, I know you could do it because you got the will, you want to do it. He came back the next week expecting to do the course on the Sportster again. Instead, I made him do it on his electric glide. By the end of 4 hours, not only was he doing the exercises at 24 feet, he was doing them at 18 feet. He was the best rider in the class, and I think we had 8 or 9 people in the class. So this guy went from being horrible, horrendous, terrible, to being a really good rider. But he had the will. If you don't have that stick-to-itness, if you don't have it in your head that you're gonna do this no matter what, yeah, you probably shouldn't be on 2 wheels. If you get your motorcycle license and you pass that MSF course, they always tell you, now this doesn't mean you're ready to ride in traffic. It simply means you know the basics, and you should go out and find an empty parking lot or a deserted road and practice what we've taught you here. Unfortunately, nobody ever does that. I've never met a person who got an MSF and then actually went out and practiced some more. Usually they think, well, I'm good to go, but that's not the case, folks. This is not like driving a car and you get your license and you're ready. In the car, you've got all kinds of protection. You got seat belts and airbags and everything else they could think of to keep you safe. And if you crash, the chances of getting killed are pretty slim. It's the exact opposite on a motorcycle. You could get any type of crash. You're going to have some pain. You could get hurt. You could get seriously hurt, or you could get seriously killed. And you might say, what the hell is seriously killed? Either you're killed, you're dead, or you're dead. Well, seriously killed is when the very last thing you see as you're sliding along the ground is your 850-pound motorcycle about to roll up on top of you. So don't let that happen to you. I'm not making light of people that get killed on motorcycles, but there's an old saying, and it's been proven, 98% of motorcycle crashes are avoidable if you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, well, I feel sorry for you. Get some training, folks. Get my video. Practice the techniques you see in the video. Just spend just 2 hours on a Sunday practicing them in the order I show you. Do that for 2 or 3 weekends. You will not believe the difference it will make. You have to be able to handle that motorcycle. Having a high fear level and being frozen in fear while you're riding your motorcycle is a terrible thing. I don't even see how people actually enjoy themselves when they're scared to death of the bike they're riding. That's crazy stuff. After you get some skills, you will enjoy riding so much more when you actually know what the hell you're doing. So take it from me, if you're one of those people whose skills are really lacking, and when I say really lacking, if you've been riding for a couple of years and you still can't make a simple freaking U-turn on your average street, yeah, you need some serious help.